Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, and tonight I've got a special guest with me joining RDV. That would be Mr. Easy E himself, Eric Breen, as I like to call him. Both gentlemen, as you ladies and gentlemen know, are from the great Midwest. And I'm happy to have them here tonight talking to me about a Christmas movie, Christmas in Connecticut from 1945, with Barbara Stanwyck, which I always think of Fletch because they say Stanwyck in there, the Stanwyck residence. I don't know if there's a connection there, and there might be. And this is my first watch, guys. There's not a lot of films I can sit there and say that are, but this is an older black and white movie. And I will say this. I know this was recommended to watch. It's a Christmas film. I think it's probably one of the earliest films that encompasses a lot about what we currently know to be the Christmas template, where it's kind of lighthearted. Yes. It's kind of fun. It's kind of everybody has a happy ending.
It's got cows in it.
It's got whatever. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't hate it. I thought it was done okay. I kind of just didn't like it for a few reasons. Basically because the chick's a phony, and I always hate this kind of, I just kind of didn't like that. I thought Stanwyck was fine. I've heard her name a lot. Don't know if I know her very well. And I thought the actors did really well. My takeaway from Christmas in Connecticut is I don't think it's that good of a Christmas movie. I hope to watch more to say what I think might be a better one so I can decide why I like certain films. But the big takeaway for me is I want to see more Sidney Greenstreet because, man, this guy just jumps out every time I watch him. And I've seen him in Casablanca, Maltese Falcon sort of thing. And when he was in there, I was like, oh, that's Sidney Greenstreet. I better pay attention. So, yeah, I mean, what are you guys' initial take on this? All right, Eric, let's start with you because you're the expert on this film and some of these older ones here. I would love having you here. What do you think of Christmas in Connecticut?
Well, I'm the one that recommended it, so obviously I liked it a lot. I'm not sure why, because it's a complete farce. It's absolutely impossible to believe, but that's kind of
innocence in it, right?
That's kind of how movies were in these days, especially comedies, and especially like maybe it's kind of like a caper comedy because obviously, Elizabeth Lane is living a lie, but it's not a lie that's hurting anybody. It's just that she works for a man who has unrealistic ideas of how life should be, I guess, because not to make anything about this movie even remotely serious, but his family can't get back for Christmas, and it's almost like he can't believe it because he's Alexander Yardley. And
he doesn't let them get a word in either. He just shoves it.
Never mind. I don't know. I said it's a comedy of errors. There's no mean-spiritedness in this movie at all. No. It's got Felix is a wonderful side character. Norah, even Sloan, who is destined to lose because he might as well have been played by Ralph Bellamy in this movie because he wasn't going to get the girl.
No.
And it's just like from the first scene where they're on the boat, we're supposed to believe that they can survive 18 days and they're still, pretty much intact.
Yeah, it's 15 days and he's dreaming about, and I love that the whole bit on the raft, and he's got the waiter. No, I love that. It's so hokey, but I love it though.
Yeah, so I mean, I said it's.
You know what kind of movie you're getting into when you saw that, though.
It's going to have a happy ending from the first scene, and it's just fun. I don't think you're supposed to look for any deep meaning. It's just you go along for the ride and have fun. So I mean, I don't think it portends to be a classic by any stretch. It's just a fun Christmas movie, and I don't say I fell in love with it. But it's one of those movies where I absolutely will watch every year, even though I'm to the point now where I can pretty much recite the dialogue along with them.
Well, RDV, you and I have talked a little bit, 70s, 80s and all that, the tonal shifts from decade to decade or even during the middle of the decade. And you'd always brought up something I thought was a really great comment that always made me think about films when you said, yeah, I don't care for movies, deep or complicated, but, generally most of the time you want a movie to have a happy end or what you want to be positive is what we've talked about. We've talked about the lack of good family ones in here. Obviously, this movie has that in spades. To Eric's point, there's no real maliciousness going on here. She's just somebody that, falls in love with somebody at first sight, and because she has to put up the charade of, being this person that writes stuff and gets, and all this kind of stuff. It's like a harmless Martha Stewart and the kind of shenanigans romp and all that. But I kind of wanted to bring up the fact that, hey, when this came out, you got World War going on. Maybe there's an intentional thing of making movies very light back then, because this feels like one of those films, doesn't it, RDV?
It's a 1945 film. A lot of these films did have slapstick routines like this. I forgot what movie it is, but there's a movie I really love. I watched it years ago on Turner Classic Movies. About a couple, they were poor, and they decide to divorce. And then he chases her across the country on a train stuff, and just to try to win her back. She's engaged to this rich guy, and it turns out, and then he ends up being pursued by the rich guy's sister. And at the end of the movie, you find out that there's actually each the guy and the husband, or the former husband and former wife, both have a twin who marry the rich couple, the rich guy and the rich. Yeah. And I said these were the movies back then. I mean,
True.
so I was not expecting anything really different after the whole first scene with the raft, where he's like, and they're like, yeah, it's 1945. You're supposed to expect, these. It's a perfect time to talk about a war movie stuff. He's a guy who just survived his ship being blown up by the Nazis. I love the whole the torpedo scene. I was like, it was well done. But going into this, what really drew me into this movie is at first, she's getting railroaded. As far as she lied this whole time in her articles. It's been CZ Sakall, who's basically been doing he's the restaurant owner, and he's been giving her the recipes, but she's running her articles. So she's been kind of lying, using him, and it's no different than a guy doing it, back then. Remember, this is right around towards the end of the war. Basically women were in the workforce no more, because they had to pick up for the guys. So anyway, this is City Greenstreet doesn't even give her a chance to even explain when he says, "Oh, I'm gonna invite myself to dinner," and she's like, "What? No," and so she's roped into this. You got Reginald, who basically just wants to hey, I'm gonna leave my life for you, because he's been in love with her, pursuing her. She said no. She refused twice to marry him twice, and then she's kind of forced into this situation. And I love the comedic aspect of this, because you have Uno Connor and CZ Scully, who basically are fighting over the kitchen and everything and stuff. You have Barbara Stanwyck, who when she first meets Dennis Morgan, all of a sudden she perks up and she's like, "Oh my gosh, she's love at first sight." Him too.
She got the tingles.
Yes. So it's just been even before we even meet. They just even meet back in the VA hospital. Dennis Morgan and his buddy, and with the other lady, the nurse stuff, Mary. It's just you knew what kind of movie you're getting into. So I mean, if you committed past that point, I applaud you. But if you went past that point and expected something better than that, it's gonna be more serious. I don't know what we were watching, because this has been a slapstick from the beginning, and it's lighthearted. It's very comical. It's kind of it reminds me of more like the Parent Trap kind of comedies that Disney would do later on.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually like the movie a lot. Going into
it's likable, and it's everything you guys are saying is. I think this is one thing that is worth bringing up here a minute, because I don't know if this enters your mind at all, especially like this film, because it's done well. It's not offensive, right? I wasn't annoyed by anything with it. But here's the thing, and people joke about the modern day version, which is irritating and annoying. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? If something is set around a particular time, and people like to say Christmas time, they call it a Christmas movie. If it's not really, if you could take that out and put something else in it, it's not a Christmas movie. But people think of Christmas time as the end of the year, where everybody gets a gift. And if you're an adult, instead of getting the train or the BB gun or whatever like that, now it's, I'll get a spouse, and I'll get a house or the dream job, and everything will be happy. My family life will be like that. That's like the adult version of it. So I get it, but it's a complete lack of, it's really not a Christmas movie is what I'm saying. And so one of my issues with Christmas movies is because just because the setting's Christmas doesn't make it a Christmas movie, if that makes sense. But I think, I don't know what the earliest movie is that's kind of like it. This is 45. I'm sure there's probably a few years before it, but this is about when people really started dialing into Christmas and saying, okay, we've got something, we'll make a Christmas movie, we'll make this kind of movie or that kind of movie. And it just seems like it's basically that same thing it's now like a Hallmark movie, for lack of a better term, which doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah, it's a romance movie that takes place during Christmas. That's basically what it is. Hallmark does it all the time. Sidney Greenstreet's character was invited over for Christmas dinner, spend Christmas with the holidays with them. Yeah, so you this Christmas is the setting. Now, could you do this during Thanksgiving? Sure, but I don't think people are like, oh, I want to go watch a Thanksgiving movie. No, Christmas works better because that's where everything becomes magical. There's a scene in here where you see Barbara Stanwyck just gushing over Dennis Morgan playing and singing and playing the piano, and she's up there dancing in the tree, but where she actually she's so doe-eyed for him. And to me, honestly, I thought that was very attractive for a character like that, believable that she was that into him, and he was Dennis Morgan was also that into her too as well. But she also has to come back to realization because when they go outside, the cow comes. They got to go out there, and they're walking, and she sits down on the swing, and then she's like, "Oh, my hands are frozen." He takes her gloves off, the warmer, and I love it because there's a line you're not supposed to, because when a woman's married, you're not supposed to do that stuff, and she even makes a remark about it. I was like, "Oh, you're not that type of guy," and she admires him more for that because any other guy like Reginald, the actor, was Sloan. He would have went to report. He wouldn't care. He's just that type of guy. And then so not only is she getting lost in this, like kind of doughy eyes, again with each other. The cow ends up gone. They're like, oh shit, where'd the cow go? Because the whole point was to move the cow back to the barn. He'd skip the barn, but luckily the cow had gone back into the barn. And just like I said, it was very heavily on the romance and with a little bit of slapstick comedy in there too. And that's pretty much what this movie is. It's a rom-com.
Yeah.
But it's not your typical today rom-com. It's your 1940s kind of light humor, slapstick. There's no sex, none of that stuff. Nobody, doing drugs or The only thing you saw in here was maybe some brandy bean drink in the little tiny glasses. I always loved the full bar we had inside this little home cottage. I love the fact that the baby switch and everything. Just Sidney Greenstreet playing not a evil character, but more like a lighthearted guy who's kind of like he's a little bit gullible. But then even when he finds out, he's kind of like, whoa, well, if we can talk her into marrying you, right? And then we could have your architect business and her side by side on the cover, and just like, so basically it's a story about her. She gets involved with a guy, her boss, who doesn't listen to her. This guy has been known for, it's even reinforced in the movie. How the character says, oh, he doesn't take no for an answer. He's very for what he wants. And her finally just standing up to him, and also falling in love along the way. I liked it. I thought it was actually a pretty good, decent movie. And I can see, now you say it's not a Christmas movie, but I say it's a movie you can watch during Christmas because you don't want to watch this during any other day or season because it's Christmas in the movie.
I think a part of that has to do, and Eric, I'd be curious what you take about this because I'm not trying to be too saucy here, is that one of the things about Christmas movies is that it idolizes a present, idolizes like a fantasy that you have here, and I think that's why women are attracted to these kinds of films because, they're lighthearted, they're insincere, but again, the woman's she's not really a phony. She's a phony. She's a fraud, but it's acceptable for what they do there, and so shenanigans ensue and all that too, but. I mean, to just fall in love just like that at the drop of a dime, I mean, isn't that reinforcing like childlike beliefs rather than mature adult relationships? I thought that was better explored in the last movie that we did there with Robert Mitchum, the way they would talk about how to deal with the boy and all that too. To me, those are two strikingly different movies as far as, how they approach the adult part to it. This is very lighthearted, like they were children. Yeah. Although I did pop hard when I saw them smoking and they're talking about eating steak versus whatever in the hospital.
Yeah, he's like, I'll give me milk. I'm soon going to be mooing. But yeah, I mean, it turns out that Dennis Morgan's character is not that very innocent either. He was engaged to the girl, the nurse, until he gets word later on in the movie that, well, she ended up marrying his buddy. From Moore, and so that allows them to basically hey, I can't accuse the other one of lying to me when Felix, and plus Felix had basically explained to Jefferson, saying, hey, this is going on. So if anything, he would have been the one that's basically truly engaged and stuff, but until they found out, But
What were you gonna say,
go
Eric?
ahead, Eric.
Okay. For starters, Jeff got engaged so he could get solid food. He was using the old Magoo.
The old Magoo, that's right.
Yeah.
Which means it's okay to mac on her to get food.
Yeah, because in those days, apparently, you got engaged before you held hands.
Yeah.
There was an order to this, guys.
Now, as far as like you're mentioning, kind of reinforcing whatever it was you were saying, I think what we're supposed to take away from this was, and let me a quick aside. This was 1 year after Barbara Stanwyck had played arguably the ultimate screen villainess in Double Indemnity.
Oh, okay, that's what she's from. Okay, I know that movie. Okay, gotcha.
And this was not her first Christmas movie. She'd made one with Fred MacMurray, also of Double Indemnity, 5 years earlier, called Remember the Night, where she plays a kleptomaniac who gets let out of jail for the holidays and ends up going back to live. Turns out she lives close to where Fred MacMurray's going back to. But anyway, now I think in this, and Dennis Morgan, that is him singing and playing the piano. He is,
yes.
His claim to fame was musical. He was a sometime partner with Doris Day early in her career. As far as the Elizabeth Lane character, they made it a point to say that Sloan was in love with her. She was not in love with him. And there's the scenes where he said, you could learn to love me, and when he proposes for the third time, he finally wears her down. And she just kind of does it in a moment of weakness because, she may be out on her ear anyway.
Yeah.
But she's ready to fall in love. It's not going to be with him. Dennis Morgan is that, like, so when you meet Mr. Wright, it's like falls in your lap. Yeah. And obviously he feels the same way about her because he didn't care about the nurse. Like I said, he wanted to eat steak. So that just kind of added to the comedy that, of course, she ends up with Sinkewicz, off camera, and so which kind of helped tie everything up at the end of the movie. I said that all the things that fall into place to make the movie work. From that to when Felix opens up the telegram and pretends it's an offer from Good Housekeeping for double, way more money than Yardley was paying Elizabeth. So he gets indignant and says, I'll double it, and then tries to get her back by offering her double her salary. And then she finally stands up for herself. But even then, that it's all going to work out. So it's like I said, I think it's just, again, I don't think you're supposed to look for any deep meaning in this movie. This is just, I think it's just there to have fun.
Yeah, and one of the things that made me think about too, like with the music and everything, was that obviously a lot of times movies, whether Christmas or not, they would be filmed with an orchestral score, and sometimes get an electronic music a little bit later in the 60s and 70s and such. But to me, that was reminded, and you might know this, Eric, RDB. I don't necessarily expect you to, but I was always a big fan of some older musicians and newer ones. That's a big hobby of mine. And one guy I just think is one of the best singers I've ever heard. I almost saw him live a couple times, except for the tickets were like $500,000. But at 95 years old, I think Johnny Mathis stopped performing earlier this year.
Johnny Mathis, better than Elvis.
Well, Elvis is here's the thing. Sinatra's up there and some others, but there's you and I did a movie, and Eric, I don't think you were with us, or maybe you were going to be. Well, I don't recall, but the movie Diner, there's a conversation.
Well, he was Sinatra. With us.
Okay, well, the conversation the two guys had between Sinatra and Mathis was, will you make out to, Mathis? The reason why I'm mentioning for it is because there's always the argument or discussion people have, not necessarily films, but I think at some point it's going to start with films, and I'm wondering when it's going to be with Christmas films when we talk about Christmas music, because Johnny Mathis, his Christmas music is incredible. Obviously Sinatra can sing anything. I don't know if anybody listens to him for that. I know some people that listen to more jazzy kind of stuff. I love the Peanuts jazz group, the Vince Guaraldi group, and all that kind of sound for Christmas stuff. But that's the 60s. So these older movies, I'm curious because, again, the one with Robert Mitchum, it didn't really, I think, do that well. Some of them are bombed and then they get more popular or whatever it is. There's these interesting things about when people go back and revisit them. Oh, this is the first time we heard Silent Night in a movie or A Holy Night or something that became a bit more like that. And so I didn't know with this movie if that had anything in it. And I don't think I caught anything. But again, I agree with everything that you guys are saying. It's a harmless movie. It's a lighthearted one. And I think especially at the time of war, that was important in that you wanted to go and check your friggin' brain at the door for an hour, hour and a half, leave, and okay, you had fun. You saw some people you liked. Nobody was mean with each other. Nobody used language. It's a very safe film, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just I'm trying to figure out the whole Christmas thing because it seems like people, Jen, Christmas, it's this type of movie, not that it's got the religious tone to it or like that, or the music or something else there too. So yeah, certainly nothing wrong with it. And if anything, we can all, I think, agree that it does kind of really demonstrate how you always mention the Hays Code, Eric, about how you couldn't talk about sex or you had to use innuendo or whatever. And there definitely was a lot of that in those film noir movies and such too, right? So I mean, it's pretty cool to see how they tackled those adult themes back when they had all these restrictions.
You know the great thing about this movie? It's younger than Dick Van Dyke.
He's in his 90s, right?
I think another movie that makes it so enjoyable is the amount of screen time that's given to CZ Sakall and Sidney Greenstreet.
Yes,
because if CZ, he was in Casablanca also.
Mm-hmm.
He worked. He was one of the workers at Rick's bar, and just the way he would, like when he's talking to the waiter, and he's like, catastrophe. What does it mean? And then he gives him the explanation. So that's good, right? He goes, no, that's bad. And then he turns around and uses it like 2 minutes later. And then, like I said, when he's running around going, everything's hunky dunky. And Sidney Greenstreet gets to chew up scenery like it's one of those turkey legs in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I said, whether or not, Barbara Stanwyck was a major star at the time. Dennis Morgan was up and coming. In fact, this is before he started working with Doris Day. That came in the late 40s. The rest of the cast were pretty much character actors, and some that have been around for
forever. O'Connor, we saw in The Invisible Man.
Yeah. So I think what if nothing else, you got just really great performances out of two people who are generally when they're given the amount of screen time, leave indelible impressions. And and Dennis Morgan is, he was actually when one of the other things he did, he was part of like a comedy duo with Jack Carson, who was a man, like big man. Unfortunately, died very young in 1962. But he was also, if you've ever seen Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, in one of his rare serious roles, he plays Big Daddy's son that did everything right, but of course, his dad has no use for him because he's focused on Brick, who was played by Paul Newman. Mm-hmm. But so I said, but I think that Dennis Morgan has an appeal. I mean, he's he's certainly not magnetic like a Cary Grant or a Humphrey Bogart, but he was fine for this role.
And I think you mentioned Barbara Stanwyck. I mean, it's interesting when we watch these older films too, because unless you know who they are, or people say this person's a star, this person's not, there's a little bit of kind of like mental programming that people expect to have. But to me, it's still the eye test. I don't care what movie it's in or how it was written, or if there's references I don't understand or get politically or whatever at the time. But when I see Humphrey Bogart, I'm paying money to watch him. When I see Sidney Greenstreet, I'm like, man, this guy's got it, But the thing is the majority of movies, even like today, there might be more actors in general, but there's very few stars. And I think, having a good base around it. And I think Stanwyck's totally fine. I had no issues with it. I'd forgotten how broad-shouldered the women's outfits were back in the day. It wasn't just like a 60s, 70s power office kind of thing over here. Because I'm looking at her going, Jesus, I don't want you to, play outside linebacker for me. I mean, the rest of you could use one. You know what I'm saying? Jesus.
Well, my favorite thing is that there was no one complaining about her wearing a real mink coat. There was no one saying,
right.
"Oh, you're horrible."
That was simple. You're right.
Yes.
Oh, I always promise myself what's 6 months worth of
Also,
whatever.
all the smoking indoors.
Yes,
I loved it. Aziz Sakall, Felix, in his restaurant you were talking about earlier, Brain. There's one scene in particular. He's walking around and he comes to this guy playing the xylophone, and he basically pulls a cigarette out of his mouth, throws it on the ground, and he's walking around with a cigarette in his own mouth. I'm like, I was like, you can't do it, but I can. And I saw that. I was like, really? That's real. But overall, it was just, I love ZZ's Sakall actually just steals the movie more than Sidney's Greenstreet does. His scenes as Felix, no matter what he's in, while either get toward the end, when he's like, I don't hear, and he's talking to Sidney's Greenstreet, he's like, I don't hear them talking. He's like, that's good because they're making up. Because he's playing matchmaker. Even before when he enters the place, he's like, where's the kitchen? He's like, oh no. He's like, what? He's like, this is crap. And then like, what's this? And he's like, oh, and he's like, slop. And and then she's like, oh, and he's fighting with the woman, and he basically now I think paprika fixes. Now it's officially slop.
Well, I do think
I love him being the food snob. I love it because he's what Barbara Stanwyck's supposed to be. She's using his recipes this whole entire time. That's what got her in the trouble because she wasn't a real cook, so she had to fake everything.
Which at the time was definitely not the ideal representation of what you're bringing to the table from the female perspective. You were expected to do all that.
There's only
that's
one
brought up at the end.
There's only
she can't cook.
Yeah. There's only
what's a wife.
There was one thing though that really stood out to me in the beginning when we have Dennis Morgan's talking to I believe it was to his buddy, and he's talking about the magazine stuff, and I guess there was something. It was either he said it or when it was when Barbara Stanwyck was talking to Sidney Greenstreet, she had mentioned in one of her articles that how her boy is a very gentleman and likes to help out in the kitchen. So I kept thinking about it's like, oh, and then the next thing they have a baby. I'm like, well, I guess how he helps out in the kitchen. Maybe I misheard it wrong because nobody paid attention to that because she said in an article that she had an older kid. Not too old, but I would have thought maybe right around a little younger than Timmy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a very slapstick movie. Going in this, I've never watched a Barbara Stanwyck movie. Well, looking at the stills, I was like, it didn't really do much justice for me. I'm like, okay, she's just another dame. And then when you watch her acting in here, especially when you see her, when she meets Dennis Morgan, the instant chemistry these two people had in this film, it was believable. Something you don't really have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I even think they had chemistry because it's such a lighthearted film. I don't know. It's it's weird because you mentioned stills, and we talked about that with everything, but the one movie that escapes me that Against All Odds from the 80s was a remake of was that Beecham was in that, I think, looking up somebody. And so when he meets the lady when he's down there in Acapulco or whatever, and she just stands there and the camera goes, I still remember that scene from her her feet, all the way up to her dress and body and all that too. And you're like, wow, what a way that just kind of knocks you on the head and all that too. It's really hard with these other films if they don't do something like that to really drive it in, or they have something exotic or unique about them. And Stanwyck's fine. I'd love to see more stuff in her, but I do think, for my final thought, I'll say this: fine film. I get what it is, but I think part of the appeal of a Christmas movie, quote unquote, is the fact that we didn't have martial arts films for the most part back then, or a lot of this, that. You had gangster films, this, that, whatever, dramas, whatnot. But I think it was okay to tell yourself, we're going to have a type of movie that it's okay to just kind of have fun, and here's kind of the general rules to it, and that's what it is. And that's kind of like, RDV and I saying, well, if we want an action movie, what do we think it is? It doesn't necessarily mean volume of action, but we want to see two dudes wanting to beat the shit out of each other, or two girls, or whatever it is, or weapons or something.
Mm-hmm.
But we generally, you and I, prefer seeing no CGI, no stuff. We want to be wild by. Yeah, we want to see them doing all that kind of stuff, and I can't stand all the other stuff to it. So it's interesting because I don't know if this is a movie that people felt that way at the time they saw it, and I guess we'll never know. But it definitely has its charm, and people do seem to like it. And I know there's other movies out there too. It just wasn't as big of a movie for me.
It's a lighthearted romance comedy, which is very popular back in the day, and it still is today. Now, like I said, we brought up earlier, this is a little more what they did here. We had limits, what they could not do on film. So it's become very innocent. They were actually kind of skirting the thing where she's like, because he's heavily flirting with a married woman, or so he thinks, and that's kind of a no-no back then today. So if we're at 1945, that was considered, she was considered to be a harlot if she actually was married. You know,
that's kind of what I meant about, you know, it re-emphasizes bad behavior the way in the fantasy.
But like you said, like, you know, and when Sidney Greenstreet finds out, oh, you're not married, never got married. What about your trial woman? Like, it's like, and he's making a because the woman took the baby home, her mother, the real mother, and he's like, you don't care about the baby. And he's like, I'm like, and I love it because she finally gets enough of him just over talking her, and she finally gets it back and says, you know what, shut up, sit down, or and listen to me finally, because he would talk to her, but he wouldn't listen. And honestly, that wasn't a lot of media back then too. You'd see this
again. One of the things in these kind of movies, when the first time she is bathing the baby and is calling him Robert.
It's Robert.
And when Dennis Morgan looks at you, do you say the baby's name is Robert? No, Roberta. And we're supposed to just go along with the fact that okay, no problem. Or that when it was a different baby, or when when they talk about it, like we said, you weren't married. Oh, we meant to get married, but blah. Yeah, it's like what? Okay, because if you saw the movie, It Happened on Fifth Avenue, they kind of do the same thing when Michael O'Connor thinks that the baby is his daughter's with the guy that she just met, and anybody that could pass first grade math knows that the numbers couldn't possibly add up. But it was, but that's not the point, because movies aren't supposed to create any deep thinking. Even the flirting with a so-called married woman, the audience knows they're not married, so it's okay. It's and it being a lighthearted comedy, it's like those the rules of what you could do and couldn't do obviously don't apply here, and even in the pretense that they're not, that she's not in love with him, with Sloan. And Sloan is, I mean, you can even tell Sloan doesn't even appear to be that into it, because he cares more about his business, prefab houses and his heating systems than anything else. So it's I said it's as our friend Amy would say, it's fine.
It's a photograph.
Did you know what C.K. Sakall's nickname was?
No.
Cuddles. Because of his chipmunk cheeks.
Yeah. This is a movie. It's not really meant to be psychoanalyzed. This is a movie. You just watch it, and then do you enjoy it, or you don't enjoy it. I said it's nothing really. Eric said there's nothing really deep about it.
Well, to Rob's point, this does make top 50 lists, but you can usually find it closer to the bottom than the top. It's not considered a classic Christmas movie by any stretch. It's just one that just struck a chord with me, so it got on my every year list.
For star power, honestly, you bring up the main leads. I did like that. I said I thought they had chemistry together. I've never watched Double Identity, so I've never seen her. I've never seen her play the villain, but I mean, when I watch a Bogart movie, and the minute his character sees Lauren Bacall, every single time you can see the attraction. You can see it's like as I said, I argue I like watching the movies with him and Lauren Bacall than I do like Casablanca. But yet people think Casablanca is a better movie of his.
So you bring up an interesting thing there too, because again, it's something definitely worth diving into at some point, especially when we talk about older films. Casablanca was a film that came out and it did okay, I guess, or whatever like that. But somehow over the decades, it got established as Casablanca, that movie. And that's my
scene at the end. Here's looking at you, kid. That's all I ever see.
Right. But you know what? It wasn't that way for the longest time when it came out. Right. So that's kind of like, it's like Titanic, right? There was this big fandom about Titanic in 97, 98, whenever it came out. And it's not that good of a movie. It's visually quite stunning. It's kind of shitty and dumb and stupid. People make fun of it. but it became something at the time that people talk about, right? I mean, I'm just, it's one person's opinion of it. Movies like Christmas in Connecticut or some of these older films that we've done, you got Robert Mitchum in them, you're like, man, it's the Robert Mitchum movie, we're going to see it. Okay, we got Stanwyck, don't know her that well. And she's a star, obviously, Eric, you mentioned that. But somehow, sometimes these older things that we go, oh, that's a Christmas movie or that's a blah, 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 it didn't become what people think of it now until way after it came out. And with some of these older films, I'm trying to, like you mentioned, Eric, if this makes it on Christmas lists, maybe it's at the bottom. That makes sense to me because I don't see the attraction why people always talk about it a lot. I just don't. But if it's in the top 50, that means there's probably 40 to 50 more that I probably would prefer. And that's fine.
I love that you brought up the Hallmark thing because the Hallmarks are really just cookie cutters, clones of these older movies.
Exactly. It's exactly right.
Wonderful Life has been several times through the Hallmark movies where someone wishes that she has a busy life and she wishes she had time alone. She wouldn't have done this. She ends up being not married and she's after seeing her lover with somebody else, and she does whatever she can to get her life back. It's like I said, and and that's not a knock on these movies.
No.
It just means that they're so treasured that people love these kind of stories.
I am going to tell you why this movie's still being watched 80 years later.
When you have a VHS?
What's that?
Because you have a VHS?
No, because if you look at it, this is a Hallmark movie.
It is.
But I'm going to explain it by quoting Norah Desmond. Now, Rob, you may know who I'm talking about.
Give it to us.
That was Gloria Swanson's character in Sunset Boulevard. I am big. It's the pictures that got small. the characters, the people they were larger than life in these movies, and that's why. Because Barbara Stanwyck is Barbara effing Stanwyck, and and I was getting ready to say before, Venk, Double Indemnity. Barbara Stanwyck and Fred McMurray conspired to kill her husband.
Yes. At
the time, they were. This was before Fred McMurray actually played the bad guy in a bunch of noir movies, but he was a good guy. Because he was a nice guy. Then
so the girl corrupted him.
Then he was Steve Douglas and the Absent-Minded Professor. But Barbara Stanwyck was pretty much a movie heroine, even though she played a con woman in The Lady Eve with Henry Fonda, but that's neither here nor there. But the good guy of the movie that puts the pieces together is Edward G. Robinson, a career villain. So you get all these three major stars, flip them, on their ear, and Billy Wilder made arguably the greatest noir movie ever.
Nice.
And you absolutely need to watch it.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones of those types that I remember seeing because I went, oh, that guy's like you say, playing against type, right? And you're like, I see how that works, and it's a great example of it. So again, nothing new in film today, right? Except for CGI. I mean, but all this stuff kind of still is a thing. And so, yeah, I think it's completely fine. People like what they like, and that's cool. It's always interesting talking about it because the one probably the only thing that I didn't mention about this film that I still think is appropriate, and as mentioned with the Mitchum stuff, even with the backdrops, is there's a certain neatness and cleanness to them because they're intentionally shooting in black and white with the way people dress and the minimalism with some of the backdrops and the sets. And it's interesting, like when she got on the phone and here she's writing a note to herself, and I'm looking at the really nice phone, put place in here, and the over the top comment, Eric, that where that comes from the fact that a lot of people started in vaudeville or got their start in silent pictures, and then they overdid it here in acting, which is a smaller aspect ratio, and then things got busier in the background and bigger and louder, but not necessarily better later on in film. So there is a simplicity to them, but I do like it. And these pictures you picked out here, RDV, like if we look at Dennis Morgan's there, he's got it's probably a charcoal gray. I don't think it's not going to be a black suit, but you see how there's the white around him, but then the black there, and then the white around his hair and all that. There's a certain depth that the black and white does that to me, it's its own unique art form. And I like that with these older films that I don't think modern films have a lot of.
These are the Google image photos of the casts. So that's how old these photos are.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I've just my first Barbara Stanwyck movie, first Dennis Morgan. The only characters I recognize here is Una O'Connor, which I love her because she always plays a sassy old woman who's always angry, and just I love her acting, and she gets so emotional. CZ Sakall and Greenstreet, seen them before in Casablanca.
Mhm.
I didn't know anything about the rest of the cast, and I thought they're all wonderful. But of course, like I said, Felix stands out for being the character more than City Greenstreet does. City Greenstreet, he plays his character. He plays a guy, a very cliche character who basically, I know what I want to do, and we're going to do this. And then, of course, everybody else has to basically tiptoe around him because they don't want to displease him. And then you have Barbara Stanwyck, and Jefferson Jones playing two people who love each other, but kind of can't be together for some weird circumstances. It always happens in the movies. And Felix is the heavy as far as a comedy. I love it. And that's what makes this movie so great. You have Reginald who plays the stiff. He's kind of like, well, darling, you're in a pickle now. You better marry me, otherwise you won't be. You're getting fired. And he's kind of like not the villain, but he's kind of like just there. And he
Victim
plays
number one.
Yeah, victim number one. And then, like I said, like Dick Elliott playing the judge comes over to marry them, and he doesn't care. Every time he comes over, he's like, "Oh, can I have more than a brandy?" It's kind of that's what I think every single time when I see this. It's like everybody was a character actor back then,
Mhm.
and we talk about Morgan Freeman being one of the best supporting character actors. But we also had what was it? Wilford Brimley was the other one. So I said, I don't care if these guys are not if they weren't famous. I don't know if they were at the rest of this cast, but they helped make this movie great, and I like it. So I definitely give this a movie about a 4.5 out of 5.
Well, that's why we at Christmas time always like to review some older films, ones we haven't seen before, because I'm a bit deficient on that area, and I think you are as well. And Eric, I know you've got a lot more movies watched under your belt when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that's always cool. You doing all that. I don't have to like it. I don't have to love it, but I can or not. But it's always interesting to bring these things up too. So it's what we do here on the Extreme Movie Shows. We just talk about something we like, didn't like, if it works or not. It's different perspectives. That's really it too. But the fun part about it is just off the cuff and just speaking about it or whatever. So yeah, not a deep psychoanalyzing necessarily, but we all see things in our own way, and so you get to kind of see the lens and all that. But just makes me wonder the next time we do another Christmas movie, if similar things will come up, it'll be totally different. But in either case, it'll be a good discussion no matter what.
Yep.
Any other final thoughts for you there, Eric?
No, I said I just thoroughly enjoyable movie. I'll be watching it again next year. I hope you at least enjoyed it enough to at least not regret the one time that you will probably watch it.
No, and I don't, but that's why, because if somebody likes something and there's a reason why, and we talk about it along the way and you get to understand it, it makes me intrigued or makes me see something about it. Because I will tell you, just as an aside here real quick, somebody who I hadn't seen in a really long time, a friend of the family's, she showed up the other day and was talking. We were catching up. It's been years since we had a conversation. And I said, hey, how's your list coming? Because she has a list of movies and shows she likes to watch or is planning to. So we're talking about this and that, what we like, don't like. And there's a lot we don't have a comment. But she freaked out. She went, oh my God, I just saw a picture of Paul Newman when he was younger and this guy that died earlier in the year, Robert, because my name's Robert. Or I said Robert Redford. She goes, yeah. I don't care what anybody says. You could not find two men, even alive today, that are better looking than what they were. And this is a woman, in her 40s, and I totally understand it and agree with it. And it's true, because just because things are now new, have a bigger budget, doesn't mean they're better. Doesn't mean that people are better looking. It means there's something to it. And a lot of people like to think in sports, Eric, you know this, that today's the best cutting edge athletes, the most skilled of this hour, and that's bullshit. The sport is the sport, or whatever. Things get watered down to make it easier. I really appreciate, and if nothing more, with these older films, that it allows my perspective to get broadened. So maybe I take something out of it the next time I go to watch another film. And whenever I've rewatched like a Beecham film or something, sometimes I see something new and I go, damn it, that's good. Why did I miss that? Because I tell you, it's more fun trying to catch those in some of the movies that I've never seen before than the 90-minute trash that's out there today that's all predictable and you can say the lines 10 seconds before they come up. I mean, it's really embarrassing. So as much as, I might say this about older films. People go, oh, they're simpler, they're whatever like that. Doesn't mean they're bad or they're not well put together. And this certainly is. You can find almost no fault in the production of it and everything else there too. It's a comfort film. Certainly nothing wrong with that. And it's hard to do that without, trying to pop some agenda or whatever. And I think this film checks the boxes if that's what you're so inclined to enjoy.
I agree.
Huh. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Christmas in Connecticut, 1945, Barbara Stanwyck. Check it out and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to review, TV shows, movies, or otherwise here. I'd like to thank RDV for getting us going here tonight for it, as always. And Eric with the wonderful suggestions. You always come through in a holiday, sir. You always rise to the occasion. And that's one thing I love about our listeners here at the Extreme Movie Show, especially Eric Breen joining us tonight. We'll see you guys Tuesday night for Landman, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll see what comes up over the next week. And we just posted Hannibal season 1 episodes 11 and 12. Only one more episode to go. Go check that out. The pieces come together between Will and Hannibal. Good night now.
And if you want more movies where Rob doesn't like what we pick, let us know. I always love it. It's like, you're always like, I could tell you didn't like this movie as much as me and Breen did. So it's always like we should need a segment. It's like, hey, Mikey, he likes it.
I still see live running.
Yeah, because I didn't end it yet. Now I'm ending it. Good night, everybody.